You know what it is?
Mr. G.
It's that day of the week again.
We back at it, yo. With a bang, yo.
Happy 2025.
Happy New Year, Mr. G.
It's great to be back. Great to be here and in our same spot talking about our favorite subject, Bitcoin SV, Satoshi's vision for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Are you pumped about 2025?
Yo, Mr. G, I'm super pumped, man. I mean, you know, a lot is going to be happening this year, and we also geared up, you know, well rested or fresh.
Yes.
You know, ready to take on all the challenges this year brings, you know.
Ready to fight the battle, ready to fight the war, the crypto wars.
Straight up.
We've got a tank. It's called BSV.
Yeah, Satoshi soldiers are here with the tank, yo.
Yeah, that's right. And if you want to know about Bitcoin, the way Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned it, not the way that the world has now corrupted it.
Yeah.
If you want to know what Satoshi intended when he built Bitcoin, this peer-to-peer electronic cash system, then this is the show to watch.
Straight up.
And it's not a news show. You're going to see that we don't talk about current events so much. Of course, we do talk about the events that are happening in the world, but this is not a daily news show.
Yeah.
This is an educational show. What we want to do is we want to explain the concepts of Bitcoin and what Satoshi Nakamoto intended for Bitcoin. What has happened over the years is that many different people have come into the crypto space, and especially with Bitcoin, have decided to change the way Bitcoin works.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the different versions of Bitcoin.
Yeah. All the forks and stuff, the changes, sort of like delayed the process where, you know, the industry would be like as far as actually every country running their stuff on the blockchain, you know. But here we are, still soldiering on. 2025, we got the gas, yo.
Yeah, we do. And we've got a great guest today. Yes, we're going to kick off this year with a guest, a real Satoshi soldier. Somebody who's been almost on a daily basis producing videos on YouTube and elsewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah.
SirToshi is his name. That's what he goes by. And we're going to be interviewing him, and we want to find out what his predictions are for 2025.
Yeah.
We want to know what he thinks is going to happen this year in terms of Bitcoin, SV, and crypto generally.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. G, it looks like it's going to be an unpredictable year. I mean, we had like few sparks last year, you know, a lot of promises made.
That's right.
By presidents, by politicians. So, yeah, there's quite a lot that we're going to be expecting this year, man.
So, Satoshi, welcome to the Centbee Show. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, lads. I've been watching your show for quite a while. It's an honor to be on here.
Well, it's an honor to have you.
Yes.
You know, we constantly talk about on this show the importance of being a Satoshi soldier. You know, there is a war happening right now that most people aren't aware of. It's a crypto war, but more importantly, a Bitcoin war.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know that there are multiple versions of Bitcoin out there. And what people are calling Bitcoin today is BTC isn't in fact the original version of Bitcoin.
It's a bootleg.
The original version of Bitcoin goes under the symbol BSV, or Bitcoin Satoshi Vision.
Yeah.
So when we think of you, Satoshi, we think of somebody who is in the trenches. You are fighting the fight. You're trying to put information out there to explain to the world what the difference is between Bitcoin and all the bootlegs and the rip-offs and the copies and all that. And also, most importantly, what Bitcoin was meant to be. It was never meant to be this speculative asset, this store of value, this digital gold.
None of that.
It was always meant to be peer-to-peer cash,
Yep.
as well as this amazing decentralized distributed ledger that has all these incredible capabilities.
I mean, it's stated in the white paper, yo.
You've got this fantastic show where I think on a daily basis you are putting out content, reading the news and events that are happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it's just such a valuable resource, and we just are delighted to have you here to share your insights with us, especially in terms of this brand new year now.
Yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, Satoshi, man, just to kick it off, our first question. I mean, you've previously mentioned that 2025, you know, is the year BSV comes alive, you know. So I just want to find out, like, what makes this year different? What makes it special? You know, I mean, BSV has been in the trenches, like, for the longest, but what's different about this year?
Well, Teranode is obviously what's different this year. And I think, I don't know if you boys know this, but Bitcoin is Teranode. There is no way that Craig would have invented Bitcoin unless he already had Teranode in mind. Because in order to create a digital commodity, Bitcoin had to go through that period of commoditization, which was the release of the white paper, then the start of the network, and then that period of neutral organic growth to let the network grow organically. So really, and Craig couldn't come out and say who he was, because he would have been a central point of influence over the growth of the network. So really, Bitcoin is Teranode. So we've not really seen what Bitcoin is. We know what Bitcoin is as a concept. It's a digital asset that economically sustains a network that doesn't have any central point of control or failure. But it's more than that. It's actually Teranode, which solves the unbounded scaling problem, which is what all the other tech companies have, which is why there isn't a peer-to-peer electronic cash system on the internet as we know it, because no one can scale past 50,000 transactions per second, which is what which is what a worldwide money requires. A digital network that can do billions of transactions per second, that can literally scale for all of the world's digital content, where content creators like what we're doing now can own and control and distribute our own digital content. So really, Bitcoin is Teranode. And we haven't seen it yet, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And bearing in mind, Teranode wasn't really in development until probably it didn't really start until 2019, because we had to go through the uneffing, as they call it, when the Blockstream guys like completely messed up the protocol, literally leaving a wake of destruction behind them as they were like tearing through it. So it took a number of years to get that out of the way, until I think is it 4th of February is one of the dates where they were just like, finally we've actually got the protocol back on track. Luckily they didn't break the chain of digital signatures, obviously, although they tried, which is when the actual forks happened through SegWit and then BCH adding Schnorr signatures and all that kind of stuff. So luckily the original protocol marched on through with the chain of signatures still intact, but really Bitcoin is all about Teranode. So since Teranode has been in the making since 2018, it's been now development for 6 years. This is the year that we should hopefully see it. So fingers crossed. That's why I say 2025, the year BSV comes alive.
Yeah, so what you're referring to there, Teranode, that's the new implementation of the Bitcoin node infrastructure, which allows for millions of transactions per second to be processed on the blockchain network, something that people in crypto have said wasn't possible. They didn't believe Satoshi when he said Bitcoin doesn't reach a scaling ceiling. And so this is the new node software that they are building that can now cater to those millions of transactions per second. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's already live. Is that right?
So it's live and listening. But it's not open source just yet. I've been told by my contacts that it will be open source within the next few months, so that all the BSV node operators will be then using it, which will be absolutely massive.
Yes, and I've heard before that you speak of Bitcoin as a commodity, meaning I think in my understanding that it's something that you use that provides value. I think that maybe is a good way to speak about commodities, and the commodity being that ledger that businesses and enterprises and other entrepreneurs, what they want to do is they want to create value by leveraging the capabilities of that blockchain. And so when it comes to it being commercialized, it needs to demonstrate that scale. Because of course no enterprise is going to want to use a blockchain if it can't handle the load that they want to put on, plus the load that the rest of the world wants to put on it.
Scaling, yeah.
So I think what you're saying there is so important, that Teranode is Bitcoin, and the way that it's going to be able to massively scale to meet the needs of every person, every business, and every device that wants to now write transactions to that ledger. I think that's a very important thing, very exciting. But you came right away into it, and I was going to leave this question till the end. But you've mentioned Craig a few times. Now, of course, and you said Craig inventing Bitcoin. Now that's a controversial statement that you've made there. Craig obviously being Dr. Craig Wright, who we've spoken about on this show. an incredibly controversial character, somebody that a lot of people out there, whether he's Satoshi, they don't want him to be Satoshi. He's very outspoken against crypto and against BTC. So can you just tell us a little bit more about why you think Craig Wright is Satoshi, and what kind of involvement he had in Bitcoin?
Pretty much when I was trying to find out who Satoshi was myself, I went down every single avenue of inquiry that I could ever possibly think of, because there are many ways to sort of try and track and trace who Satoshi Nakamoto is. There's looking at the protocol implementation and who's maintaining that, who's talking about the use of Bitcoin in the way that it was described in the white paper, who are other people pointing the finger at, like the early Bitcoiners such as Gavin Andresen, John Matonis, Ian Grigg, Joseph Van Perling, literally, all pointing their fingers at Craig. And then also people saying, Calvin Ayre as well has also seen Craig sign for him, and Calvin Ayre also being a billionaire, investing hundreds of millions, into BSV and going about protecting the patents that Enchain has got. And nobody wants to be Satoshi Nakamoto because of the amount of wealth that they've got. I mean, crikey, talk about getting a target on your back. I mean, what fool would put their hand up and go, yeah, I'm Satoshi Nakamoto, I'm worth billions of dollars, giving putting your hand up to all the criminals going, just come at me, lads, I'm worth, hundreds of billions here. I mean, who would do that? Nobody in their right mind would actually want to do that. The only reason the individual is actually doing it is because they have to do it in order to give commonality to the network, because all chains of signatures lead back there. And the only individual who's doing that is Craig Wright. And Craig has also been, Craig was at the very first ever Bitcoin conference. I think it was in 2014. He was also on the panel in 2015 when he had to explain to Nick Szabo that Bitcoin was Turing complete. Everybody remembers that. No one knew that Bitcoin was Turing complete prior to 2015 when Craig came on and actually explained it. He was recorded speaking to the Australian Tax Office in 2014, saying that he's been running Bitcoin since 2009. It was the Australian Tax Office and all that raided his house in 2015, trying to get him on tax evasion, even though Bitcoin has got absolutely nothing to do with their jurisdiction whatsoever. And then also you've got Gizmodo and Wired magazine, publishing detailed articles on, I think one of the articles, I think it was Gizmodo, said, here's all the evidence that Craig Wright invented Bitcoin. So, the evidence is there. It's just crazy. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Craig is the only one maintaining the protocol with all the economic elements that means it actually maintains common value. And he's literally the only, I suppose, chain leader, if that's what you want to call it, the only chain leader maintaining Bitcoin with its fundamental principles, the protocol that actually commoditizes data. So BTC and BCH and all these other shitcoins, they're all security. They're all securities. They all have a central point of control somewhere on the network, and BSV is the only one that doesn't.
Right, and
so that's why he's Satoshi Nakamoto.
Okay, yeah. So you think that there's just so much evidence that you can Google, you can go and find out about Craig. You can see his experience. You can see his knowledge. And also the fact that he's driving Satoshi's vision. Yeah. That has convinced you. But now, of course...
Well, also, there's the Ira Kleiman case, of course, which is massive. Kleiman versus Wright, where a Florida trial by jury found that he was the sole and rightful owner of the Satoshi coins.
And even though there was that other English court case, the Copa trial that happened a few months ago, there the judge decided that the evidence wasn't good enough to decide whether he was Satoshi. What do you think about that trial?
Well, again, I mean, this goes to show you how dangerous the space is, because it wasn't a trial, because one, there was no jury there. So if there's no jury, it means that it's purely what they call an administration court, which is just simply an administration process. There is no decision made by a jury there. So the judges completely bought and paid for, and also in that in that case, if that's what you want to call it, there was no examination of the evidence. It was absolutely ridiculous. What they did is they got Craig into a contract and said, "Do you agree to be bound by the decision that the, in quotes here, judge makes?" And he was just like, "Well, all right then. Let's see how this goes." But how can you have cross-examination if you don't have examination? You put the evidence forward and then you cross-examine it, by the opposing counsel to try and discredit it. But in this case, there wasn't even any examination allowed. The entire process was a complete contempt of court facade. It was absolutely outrageous. So when you realise how powerful the BTC maxis are, when they've got the judges in their pocket, that's when you've got to start thinking, whoa, hold on a minute. I better try and keep my identity, hidden.
So then the question is, for your prediction for this year, 2025, what do you think is going to happen in terms of the identity of Satoshi and Craig Wright?
Well, the BTC maxis like to say, the market has decided. So this was a really important process that had to be done because let's say if the market does flip and it goes into BSV, then people will be like, oh my God, who's this guy, Craig Wright? He's created BSV and is, and BSV has sucked up all the billions of dollars that I had in BTC. What an arsehole. But if they look back and they go, well, hold on a minute, he's been claiming to be Satoshi, since 2020. And he's been to court, and the court has found that he won against Peter McCormack. He won the Ira Kleiman case. They said that the judge said that he wasn't Satoshi Nakamoto in the Copa case, despite the fact that the judge ruled previously that Craig expended substantial skill and judgment in creating the Bitcoin file format. What on earth is going on? So it was all these things that have happened are sort of ticks in boxes that count towards building up a historical foundation to prove that he is. So when the market decides, as they say it, it's just like, all right, so the market's decided and there's all this evidence that he was there trying to prove who he was. Right, who are the real bad guys here then? And I'm hoping that, when the market does flip, that the fingers of blame get correctly pointed at those people who have defrauded everybody and fooled everybody into, buying that Bitcoin that doesn't work. Which is BTC, that's meant to be a store of value in digital gold bollocks.
We share the same sentiments when it comes to that.
Yes. So your prediction is that do you think anything monumental is going to happen, or do you think that this is still going to continue 2025? There won't be any big reveal or big expose of or anything. Is it just going to carry on? Is it a legal battle that will take years?
So it can't carry on, because Bitcoin is an economic model. The block reward goes to zero, and the only thing that can replace it is transaction fees. So what BTC have done, they've created a second layer to steal those transaction fees from the miners, knowing full well that without transaction fees, the network is going to collapse. There is no doubt about it. Or they're going to try and do what they did with Ethereum and move it to proof of stake. But the moment they move it to proof of stake and you remove economic competition from the network, the network becomes centrally controlled and economically worthless. It's no longer a commodity. So something has to happen due to Bitcoin's economic model. There's no other way.
Will that happen this year, or do you think this is still years coming?
So the block reward is currently 3.12, and the difficulty adjustment keeps going up and up and up because you've got Foundry USA pool, which is MasterCard, which is obviously backed by the banks that have an unlimited amount of fiat currency fraud, meaning they can just keep adding more and more computing power to the network. I suspect that, and also with Teranode coming on, I suspect that this year might be the year that Bitcoin comes alive. And also Teranode has been in the making since 2018. Something has to happen because the miners have to be given a lifeline. And Satoshi Nakamoto knows this. So he's playing sort of like a balancing act between, are the miners going to realise this? Because it all depends on the miners. If the miners recognise that BTC was economically worthless, they wouldn't be mining it and, giving it the time of day in the first place. The only reason they're giving it the time of day is because the BTC Max, the Blockstream, colluded with the exchanges to list their new protocol as BTC. So the miners just simply chase profit. They were told that they had to change their hashing algorithm if they wanted this new BTC that they created that doesn't work. So Satoshi Nakamoto knows that the Bitcoin network needs the miners. And in order to have the miners have to be given a lifeline. And the only lifeline they've got is the transaction fee model. And that's it. So I would say that something has to happen soon. Hopefully this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to summarize, in terms of Dr. Craig Wright, it doesn't matter if he's Satoshi. What matters is, can Bitcoin SV scale? Can Teranode finally realize that vision for a low-cost distributed network?
Yeah.
And BTC, the writing's on the wall. It seems their days are numbered.
Yeah.
Is that a good, fair summary of your prediction for this year?
Yeah, spot on. I've also got, because I've got quite good contacts, I've also got some very influential social media people chomping at the bit, wanting to start uploading content to the BSV network. So the moment Teranode comes live and we can start uploading video content onto the Bitcoin network, then that's going to be massive. So bring it on.
Okay, great. All right, Kage, you got a question?
Yeah, Satoshi, I mean, with that being said, what kind of an app do you see sort of blowing people's minds at this time? I mean, you're talking Teranode going crazy this year, but what BSV app, what kind of an app do you see sort of sweeping people off their feet?
Well, I would say that what you're going to do is you're just going to see all the internet apps as we know it, literally like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix. They're going to be using the Bitcoin network to secure their own digital data, to secure their own digital data records, because they're all digital companies. So, even internet banks, probably even Visa or MasterCard, if they are a public limited company with shareholders, then shareholders chase profits. And there's only two ways that you can create profits, and that's by either increasing prices or reducing your costs. And the way you massively reduce costs is by using the Bitcoin network and getting rid of your very burdensome own server network. So let's say you might have all the really big companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook that are basically sort of bought and paid for and controlled by the central banks who don't want them using Bitcoin. What you need is a small to medium-sized enterprise to come through that isn't owned and controlled by the cabal, if that's what you want to call them, or the central banks wanting them to use the US dollar as their medium of exchange and whatnot. So I would say we're probably going to see some really smart small to medium sized enterprises as competitors coming through, chomping at the heels of the big boys. That's probably eventually going to force the big boys to start using Bitcoin again for their own economies of scale. So I would say you're going to, everything that you see on the internet, you'll eventually start going to see drifting over onto the Bitcoin network, because that's the only network that can secure your data without it being compromised and ensure that it can't be cracked, altered, changed, or deleted. So why wouldn't you use it if you're a company that relies on digital information?
Yeah.
Just to expand on Kage's question, though, for 2025, are there any BSV consumer apps that you are excited about or think have promise for this year?
Mm-hmm.
I quite like Tree Chat. Their concept is very interesting. It's still probably maybe like a little bit. It's probably a little bit confusing to look at, because what you need is kind of effectively like a Twitter style social media app. But what I would say is I am aware of other apps that are becoming available, like Lament, for example. If they can sort out paying their content creators in the way that they've described to me, effectively using the BSV network and using stable coins, to cash in and out, then that could potentially be massive. But again, it's the cabal and the central bankers, meddling with things and not making it easy. And it's the central bankers that basically created Blockstream. So we've got it's certainly going to be interesting, because one of the apps I'm sure will slip through the cracks, and then suddenly massively expand, and then all hell break loose, and then they'll be trying to trying to break the business, but then there'll be other businesses hot on the heels. It's probably like the first one through the door gets shot, as it were, but there'll be plenty others snapping on the heels, because the whole point of being in business is to make profits. And like I said, the way you make profits is to either increase costs or show massive efficiencies in overheads, and that's what the Bitcoin network allows. So bring it on.
Cool. Now moving into another topic, I guess a very crypto topic, this idea of DeFi, or decentralized finance. Mm-hmm. Do you have any opinions on that, on BSV? Do you see a future for DeFi? Anything interesting you can add about that?
Well, with DeFi is kind of like an interesting one, because the DeFi that as we know at the moment is just all absolute BS. It's just literally another name that they came up to scam people with. Literally everything that we've seen in the crypto space at the moment is literally all scamming people. All these NFT JPEGs that first came out, and again, this DeFi and sort of things like Uniswap, and they're all Ponzi schemes. Literally, just give us your money. We'll give you a ridiculous rate of return. And all you've got to do is give us your crypto, and eventually we'll close down and we'll do a runner with it. DeFi is going to be difficult, because DeFi is meant to be about decentralized finance, and finance is kind of like providing finance for businesses who want to start up. The difficulty is that when Bitcoin takes off, there isn't anybody who's going to be willing to provide a loan to you, because they're never going to get the return on the Bitcoin that they give you. Because the Bitcoin is going to be going up in value so much that they are never going to get the dollar value return, which means they'll probably never get their tokens returned. So I suspect that we probably won't see, I don't think we'll see usury or lending or anything like that, probably for maybe 20 or 30 years, I suspect, because you just simply won't find an investment that will beat Bitcoin. They just won't be out there. So there'll be no point in lending your Bitcoin, because you're not going to get the return on the Bitcoin that you would get if you just simply kept it yourself. So I think there's just going to be probably 10, 20, 30 years of just the entire world piling into Bitcoin, and then we might start seeing some maybe lending facilities or something like that. But really what we're hopefully going to see is about at least, I would say 3 decades of massive economic growth. Increase in the technological advancements going around there is going to start to come to light, because these companies now won't have a stranglehold on them by the banks. They'll be able to finance their own innovations due to Bitcoin. So that's how I see things.
Okay, so you're not very optimistic on this whole idea. I mean, the idea of DeFi. I think it kind of reflects my thoughts. I think of financial services. We're a financial services company, and we have a lot of onerous rules and things we have to follow.
Compliance.
We have to have key individuals, and we have to be accountable, and we get regulated and audited and all that sort of thing. And it doesn't seem likely that you could just take all that away and just provide a financial service with no accountability.
No way.
So you're not very optimistic, at least in this year, for DeFi?
No, not at all. Not at all. I am optimistic for economic growth, and personally, I think that any financial services provider is a hindrance to economic growth, because the financial provider gives you a loan in fiat currency, which is securities fraud, as defined by SEC versus W.J. Howico 1946. So hopefully all that fraud is going to stop, and then they put an interest rate on it, which, how can you charge interest on something that's fixed in supply, when it's just simply not out there? let's say if you've got 100% of the Bitcoin supply, and someone says, "Oh, can I borrow that off you?" and you're like, "Yeah, I'll give you 100% of the Bitcoin supply for 10%." You know what? How are you going to get 10% of a total of 100%? It's ridiculous. So hopefully, all this DeFi nonsense and Ponzi scheme is going to stop, and what we're going to see is huge economic innovation in technology and advancements. That's what I think.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, Satoshi, just since you mentioned like institutions having to, adopt BSV, but do you think BSV's focus on, regulation and, recovery, features, like, will that sort of like win institutions and businesses over to their side?
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah, it's huge, because if you're dealing with billions of dollars, especially in Bitcoin, when people know it's going to be worth even more later on, if you're going to get a worldwide trade involved in this, where they're dealing in billions of dollars in either raw minerals or shipping goods and all this kind of stuff, you absolutely have to know that there is a way to recover your digital assets. If, for example, there is government espionage involved, which is sort of like economic sabotage at the highest level. There's no way that anybody is going to use a network when there's a risk of losing billions of dollars. And this digital asset recovery that the BSV has, again, what's good about it is that it allows the miners to come to consensus, and the appropriate forms would have to be filled out. It would have to go to like an international court where the evidence is put forward, and then an international order put out. All the miners come to consensus. So again, it's gonna expose the bad actors. So yeah, I think that's essential.
Yeah, on that subject, there's always you get that decentralization at all costs crowd, who have been noticing the Bitcoin Association, the BSV Association, developing these standards around digital asset recovery and the network access rules. And there's a lot of criticism because some people think that that's now creating a centralized system that can be controlled by central authorities, where they can take your money without your keys. Do you think all those criticisms are just, just being, they're
just hot air?
Yeah. Do you think it's valid? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Or do you think they're just idealists?
Oh well, all this decentralized stuff is bollocks, really. To put it straight. The word is commoditized. It's you either have, like, the correct economic terms are securitized and commoditized. So all this centralized and decentralized stuff is just really for the normies who don't really understand economics. If you have a common network, you have a network with common accountability, and so no one has any control or authority over the network. And one of the ways to make sure that nobody has any control or authority over the network is to make sure that you have a digital asset recovery in place, so that the entire network, like I said, it exposes all these bad actors. And if you have a network that allows criminal activity to exist on the network, then that criminal activity will just simply run absolutely riot, and it will thrive, and it will turn society into like literally the worst of the worst. You need a way to encourage people to act in good faith, and the way you do that is you make sure that there is common accountability on the network. Like I said, without common accountability, if there's criminal activity being facilitated, it means that those the operations, the mining operations who are facilitating that criminal activity, they will eventually be shut down and the network shut down. So there has to be a way for common accountability to exist and for digital assets to be recovered. There's no other way, and that is done through the chain of digital signatures. That's why the cabal and the central banks have been absolutely head on breaking that chain of signatures, because when you break the chain of signatures, you break the chain of accountability. The moment that chain of signatures is broken, it means that someone somewhere can do something that nobody else knows about, and that is when you get centralisation. So all this nonsense that they're coming out, it's not decentralized. It's like, no, you're talking about a centrally controlled network, you fool. So all these anonymous networks like Monero and all this kind of crap. Well, who's holding the developers and the creators to account? They can do anything they want. They can inflate the supply to infinity, and you wouldn't be any the wiser because you can't see anything on the network because it's supposedly anonymous and decentralized. There has to be accountability because the network has to be maintained. So those who are maintaining the network have to be commonly accountable. And you do that through the chain of signatures. And if you see, if you see criminal activity taking place, and like I said, government espionage, there has to be a way of recovering those funds because, espionage is all about criminal activity. So you present the evidence. Has espionage been committed? Have things been subverted? And show me the evidence, and if they have been subverted, then we'll put right what they've done wrong, and therefore everybody can use the network.
Right, that makes perfect sense to me.
It really does.
Of course, often people say, well, Satoshi was a kind of anarchist and he didn't want government control. But if you just look at how Bitcoin was developed, even in the beginning, there was something called the alert key, so that if there was an illicit transaction, then the miners could be notified and they could block that transaction. And talking about accountability, that's where accountability is, because the miners are large enough to be visible to law enforcement. And that means then they can be the ones who then decide to freeze money laundering transactions and stuff. So everything you've said absolutely makes sense, and I think very much aligns with the way Satoshi Nakamoto intended Bitcoin to be used.
Most diff.
And you also spoke about the chain of digital signatures, which is a very interesting topic in terms of BTC Bitcoin, because one of the most important things that separated the BTC network from Bitcoin was what was called segregated witness, or SegWit, and that deals with the chain of signatures. So, we're going to go into more general predictions, but given that topic around segregated witness and digital signatures and stuff, what do you think is for BTC now, given that they are trying to become more unaccountable and more anonymous with Taproot and things like that? What is your prediction around BTC for 2025?
Good question. I mean, one, you can't use BTC because they're refusing to increase the block size. And again, the block size means that there is now limitations and restrictions on the network, meaning the network can be manipulated, and therefore there's a central point of control somewhere who is manipulating the network. They've also securitized the network by adding SegWit and Taproot and all that kind of stuff. Well, it doesn't really matter about Taproot, but SegWit anyway was breaking the chain of signatures, which means that they've now securitized the network, meaning the network is economically worthless. And it's not going to, I don't think it's going to take long for too many people to figure, this is why they don't want anybody using the network, which is why they said, not many use it, store of value, digital gold, all that crap. Because if a dispute was to arise in a trade where one of the parties had either run off with the money, or you didn't get the good or service that you thought you were going to get, Misdescriptions Act and all that, you would take it to court and present the evidence to the court, and the first thing the court is going to look at is, can you prove that you made that transaction? The only way you can prove you made that transaction is if your digital signature is attached to it. The moment the court realizes, or the individual realizes, hold on a minute, I can't prove that I've made that transaction, therefore I have no claim on it, therefore there's no contractual credibility, meaning it's economically worthless, they're in trouble because that applies to the entire network. So BTC's days are numbered big time, but it will all come with utility. the moment people start realizing that you can actually use Bitcoin for all of your digital requirements, everything that you use the internet for, but instead of surrendering sovereignty to your digital content and your private information, you can just simply use the Bitcoin network for it, then the floodgates are going to be open, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's more than just technology. There's politics too, Kage.
Yeah, I mean, last year we had Trump making like a bunch of promises, and I mean, he set up sort of like a crypto-friendly team. What do you think they can do in terms of shaking BTC and BSV up?
Well, again, I mean, if they're pro Bitcoin, which Trump says he is, then all we need is for the real Bitcoin to emerge from the wilderness. And that's it, because Trump said, look, we're here to support the miners. He was very specific in that. Whether or not that was coincidental or, whether or not he actually meant to say that, I don't know. But miners chase profits. That's it. Miners have no political allegiance to any particular chain whatsoever, unless you are a Bitcoin idealist, which is what Satoshi Nakamoto is. And Satoshi Nakamoto is obviously already the largest Bitcoin miner, with just the amount of hash rate that Satoshi Nakamoto would have on the network is absolutely massive. Personally, I think he could wipe BTC off the map with his own hash rate at the moment, but it just wouldn't be prudent or safe for him to do so. But nobody has seen the hand of Satoshi really move just yet. I mean, imagine you've got pieces on a chessboard and then, a player just wipes all those pieces out with the back of his hand. That's what Satoshi Nakamoto could do to all these Bitcoins, the Bitcoin network and all the shitcoins. If he wanted to, it's there in the hash rate. He could do that at any time, but it's just not safe for him to do it.
So basically, we can just conclude that, the promise of Trump saying that, they're going to have a BTC reserve, it's just talk. So it's something that won't happen.
Well, I mean, they might well do a BTC reserve, like Michael Saylor's, like gunning for BTC and all that. But you've got countries like El Salvador that have gone big on BTC. You've got, Michael Saylor, who's gone big on BTC. And then you've got the USA thinking, we might have a Bitcoin reserve. Well, I mean, can you imagine the backlash on Blockstream and Adam Back and all those people when you've actually got countries having Bitcoin reserves, and then suddenly realise that they've been defrauded.
Yeah.
It's frauded by Blockstream that has cost their country, hundreds of billions. I think I personally think that Blockstream probably thought they could get rid of BTC by now, or they thought that BSV wouldn't exist and they would have been able to get rid of, they would have been able to get rid of Bitcoin by now. But the fact is, it's still there, and I've already seen interviews that Samson Mao has done with Peter McCormack, basically warning about Michael Saylor. Saying, what if Michael Saylor, changes his tune? What if he decides to be a big blocker in the end? And then also in BlackRock's ETF, they've already said that we reserve the right to change our mind and not actually invest in the in the Bitcoin that everybody wants to invest in, which is BTC. So they all know they're all covering their backs. In fact, the only one who isn't covering their own back is Michael Saylor, and he's going to be on the warpath, if something happens. Because if Michael Saylor was actually investing in the genuine Bitcoin, then he'd be onto an absolute winner in what he's doing. But the fact is, he's piling his own Ponzi scheme on top of another Ponzi scheme. It's crazy what's going on.
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
We were just laughing before we started the show because we were thinking we mentioned Michael Saylor just about every single episode we've done, which is now 61. You just can't talk about crypto and Bitcoin without mentioning Michael Saylor.
It's synonymous.
Yeah, but now going back to Trump, because of course, he's promising to buy 1 million BTC. Let's just say now, I don't believe he will, for one, but let's just say that they decide to start buying this. Now, of course, in BTC, there's all that talk about not your keys, not your coins, decentralization, blah, blah, blah. Now, do you think a government is going to want to have BTC that cannot be recovered? I mean, we spoke earlier about the digital access recovery rules.
Network access rules.
Yes, that the BSV Association is trying to put in place. Now, BTC doesn't have that.
None of that.
So do you think Trump is going to want to invest in BTC without the ability to recover or alert for money laundering or have accountable miners?
Well, yeah, and also in BTC, they're encouraging custodial wallets. They want people to use custodial wallets. It's absolutely insane. Why would anybody trust billions of dollars of their investment to a custodial provider? I mean, you're literally back to banking 101 again. And network access rule. Well, the network access rules that these BTCers have been up in arms about, all that is really just simply the Bitcoin protocol. That's all it is. But because they don't know what the protocol is, and again, they want people to think, oh, the market's decided. No, it's like the market. If I got a lump of if I got a lump of iron and painted it gold, and then I said, oh, because that lump of iron is now painted gold, it's gold. Does that mean it's gold? Oh no, not at all.
Of course not.
Because it's the elements that define, well, the element that defines what gold is. You can't paint an iron block gold and say, oh, it's gold. That's what they've done with BTC. But because they're claiming that the market is buying their shitcoin, and therefore the market's decided what it is just absolute nonsense, utter nonsense. So yeah, I can't imagine Trump wanting to use a custodial wallet provider and not ensure that his funds are safe.
Yeah.
And more than that, I think that if they were to buy BTC, they would want to put in place those important. I mean, of course, the chain of digital signatures, that's a legal requirement.
Yeah.
I predict that if they were to buy the BTC, they would fork BTC.
Definitely.
Because part of the community would say, no, we want to maintain the decentralization and all that. And of course, government would say, no, you're going to have to change so that you become accountable.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very probable.
Because it also goes back to Satoshi's point, of your espionages. I mean, that could easily happen. I mean, if America has like Bitcoin reserves, you might as well just attempt to hack them.
Yeah.
If we take it, they can't recover it.
Yes, not your keys, not your coins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, so that's a prediction around BTC. It doesn't seem like it has a long lifespan. Probably, given that the halving is still in another 3 years, and also the promise of Trump buying the BTC. I think that's going to support the BTC market for a couple more years. I mean, he can promise every day for 4 years that he's going to buy 1 million BTC and keep the markets humming.
Yeah.
But then moving on to, staying on the BTC side of things, because we want to talk more about general crypto now and general Bitcoin, BTC.
Yeah.
There's this whole idea of Lightning Network. You mentioned the second layer. And of course, Lightning Network is what people in BTC are pinning their hopes on, that will reduce the fees of the transactions. Because of course, BTC, I think recently it was between $3 and $9 per transaction. So the hope is that Lightning Network is going to be able to finally scale BTC. Your prediction for this year, Lightning has been in development for many years, and it's always been 18 months away. Do you think that we're going to see Lightning come out on top this year, or are we still 18 months away?
Well, did you see Donald Trump supposedly doing his first ever Bitcoin transaction? Oh my, honestly, it was an absolute mockery. It was so funny. I actually think the transaction failed and they tried to cover it up on camera because none of them could confirm that it had gone through until one of the guys suddenly said, oh, it's gone through. Congratulations. And the other guy was just like, really? And he's like, yeah, it's gone through. And he's like, oh, right, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's gone through.
It's gone through.
Oh, yay. Yeah. Well done. And Donald Trump was just like, okay, boys, look, I don't really know what's going on here, but, thanks anyway. and then walks away. And they didn't show the camera the confirmation on the notepad that they were using. If your transaction had been confirmed, you would show it to the camera and show off that the transaction had been successful and blah 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 blah.
High-fiving.
Exactly.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. The Lightning Network simply doesn't work, and it can't ever work due to the traveling salesman problem. It's not a competitive network. It can't scale. Transactions get lost. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So, my next question was, if Lightning succeeds, what does that mean for BSV? But you think Lightning will never take off?
Lightning will never take off, but also Lightning is just for minute transaction sizes. It's just for transacting, effectively like the NFT data of Bitcoin, which is a very, very small amount of data. They don't want it to be used as a tech disruptor where you can upload videos and social media content onto the network. You can't do that with Lightning. Lightning does nothing. The whole point of Bitcoin is that the coin itself economically sustains a digital network where that facilitates all of your digital requirements, which is social media requirements, HD streaming, live video chat, news broadcasting, emails, just anything and everything that's digital, tracking supply chains, all that kind of stuff. Lightning Network is not meant for that. And this is the kind of secret sauce that they're trying to hide from people, that Bitcoin is actually for.
Mm-hmm. Great.
It's just the lightning that will never strike, I guess. Yeah. I mean, Satoshi, with the BTC taking over the market, is there anything that BSV can do in terms of taking that bit of attention?
It's the transaction volume is massive, and to be honest with you, it's in terms of the economic survival of the network, it's all about the miners. It's all about the miners, and the miners are the largest bag holders of these coins, hands down. Even if you were to put all the BTC and all the other coins that are on the market that retail consumers have, the miners have the largest concentration of coins. I would probably say that the miners have maybe 80%, 70% of the coins between them, at least 50%. Because the only coins that are available retail are the ones that the miners give to the exchanges, and then the exchanges sell on to retailers, who then set the market price for it. So if you've got a network that has an absolutely staggering block fee due to the volume of transactions being uploaded onto the network, miners just chase profit. That's it. And when they switch their hash rate over because it's more profitable, and then they'll be like, well, hold on a minute. The reason it's more profitable is because there's more utility on the network, and there's more people using the network because you can actually do more on it. What are we holding all these other coins for? As digital gold and store of value and all this crap. We don't need them. So when the miners come flooding over, like literally, it's going to be like a herd of wild wildebeest pouring into BSV. So I would say it's all about the miners, and I think this is probably why the BTC are trying to get rid of the miners and trying to encourage people onto proof of stake, because they know that if the miners do change their mind and miners are economically incentivized, then they've lost. So it's all about economically incentivizing the miners. It's carrot and stick, basically, is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, well, I want to now just switch or change tack a bit here. Mm-hmm. One of your shows you did recently, you talked about the book Hijacking Bitcoin, and you even highlighted a podcast, Catherine Austin Fitz, which I haven't listened to yet, but now I'm going to, now that you've pointed that out. Mm-hmm. But the book Hijacking Bitcoin, it's got more buzz than I expected. It's by Roger Ver and Steve Patterson. And the book is about how when the BCH, the Bitcoin Cash fork, and BTC happened, that was the first fork.
Yeah.
What happened was BTC implemented SegWit and replaced by Fee. Mm-hmm. And the protocol, Bitcoin protocol, remained unchanged. That became the Bitcoin Cash protocol. Obviously, subsequently a year later, then the Bitcoin Cash protocol split, where it made changes to its protocol, and then the BSV protocol, the ticker symbol emerged, but was the one maintaining the original protocol.
Yeah.
So that book is now out, and I'm amazed at the buzz it's generating. And when I first thought about it, I thought, well, this is good because it's going to highlight and make people aware that there was a hijacking or at least a deviation from the original Satoshi vision.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know more about if there's any insight you can give about that book and the buzz that's being created and what you think its impact could be.
So again, it's good because it's drawing attention to the fact that there was a problem with BTC, and the likes of Catherine Austin-Fitch and Richard Werner, are starting to realise that there's something very wrong. Well, I think everybody realises something wrong anyway, because it's quite clear on the white paper that it says, Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. When did that change? What can you use it for? Well, nothing. So the book is highlighting all the politics that happened in that very first fork, if you like, where BTC forked off on its own protocol. So I would say that's a good thing, but obviously what they're failing to highlight in the book is when Roger did the same thing himself. He hijacked Bitcoin. What a hypocrite. Again, what's kind of funny is that these fraudsters are calling each other out, which is basically exposing themselves. So what Roger's doing is drawing attention to BTC, and again drawing attention to himself, which is going to highlight both parties being criminal enterprises. It's hilarious.
Yes. So you think there's a part 2 of hijacking Bitcoin that is yet to be written?
I doubt Roger Ver or Steve Patterson will write that, because the crowd will be baying for them. So that I would say probably part 2 is probably going to be written in the history books.
What we'll do is we'll put a call out to the BSV community. If you guys want to make an impact, then hijacking Bitcoin part 2, the rest of the story.
Yeah.
The BCH fork was only the first part, but now of course we've got BSV. So there's an opportunity for somebody out there to write an important part of history.
Yeah.
Massive. Well, I think that if BSV pops in value, then people are going to have the time on their hands to write a book like that. I suspect probably CoinGeek or Calvin or even Craig might write something like that. Even I could write a book on that would be great fun. But there's just so much that happened, and in a way, it's quite good that Steve Patterson and Roger Ver wrote that book, because the same tactics that BTC used to subvert Bitcoin is pretty much the same tactics that they used. When Roger Ver was going, whereas BTC said, the market has decided because they pumped the price with Tether. Roger Ver decided because he pumped the hash rate up. He goes, we put more hash rate on the network than the Hoover Dam can generate in 24 hours. Blah 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 blah. It's the same again. Number go up. But I don't know if I was glued to the screen watching that first hash war, thinking, what's going to happen? And I realised that it must have been Craig who was controlling the hash rate on BSV, because it can't have been anyone else. And the moment sort of BSV put their hash rate up a little bit, BCH would follow it, and then he'd turn it down, and then they'd turn theirs down, then he'd turn it up again, and then they'd follow, always making sure they were ahead of the curve. But Craig was just simply bleeding them dry. He knew that he could continue, and basically, I think it was a few years later, Roger Ver got in trouble, and was sort of like, in the hole for like something like $43 million to an exchange that he owed money to. So it was hilarious. And then Roger Ver just simply declared that they'd won. And they did the same that BTC did. They just colluded with the exchanges to list their coin as basically steal the ticker symbol, because they put more hash rate on the network. It was an absolute joke.
Yeah, jeez, what a time. I also remember that.
Crazy time.
What a story.
Yeah.
Well, that's really great. Satoshi, I just want to thank you so much. I mean, this has really been interesting. I love talking to you. We've really enjoyed this, and we definitely want to have you back.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage everybody out there, if you haven't already followed Satoshi on X, it's Satoshi TV.
That's right, yeah, it's my media profile.
Okay, don't worry, we'll put the links down there at Satoshi TV, and then your YouTube channel, which is really great. I highly recommend everybody subscribing to it. If you want to know, if you want the news distilled down in a very fun and enjoyable way, check out Satoshi.
Oh, it's BSV Bitcoin is what it is. Yeah.
BSV Bitcoin. So everybody go and follow Satoshi if you're not already doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, Kage. Well, there we go. We heard it from the man himself, Satoshi.
That was a pretty dope interview.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, well, if you've enjoyed this episode, share it with your friends.
Yeah.
And if you have any insights, anything that you want to add about what you think is going to happen in 2025 this year, your predictions around BSV and crypto, we would love to hear it. So put your comments down there.
Drop them, yeah.
And if it's really good, we definitely are going to highlight it.
Come on, guys, show some love, subscribe, tell your granny, your cat, your dog, whoever. Everyone around, just tell them that Centbee Show is the plug, the real BSV plug, yo.
Straight. All right, Kage. Well, thank you very much for joining us here on the Centbee Show. Thank you guys for watching the Centbee Show for 2025. See you soon.
Yeah.